If you are looking for a mobile wallet to hold and access your crypto, you need to go to argent.xyz and download their smart contract wallet app right onto your Android or iOS device. Argent is the most secure way to hold money on your device while still being able to access DeFi services that we all know and love on Ethereum. Through Argent, you have one-tap access to the beloved DeFi apps like Compound, Uniswap, Aave, and you can even invest directly into some yield-generating assets right from your Argent wallet. Crucial to maintaining security over your assets is Argent's Guardian service, which allows you to use a friend to make sure that you can always restore access to your funds in case you were to ever lose your phone or for your device to break. You can also use a local hardware wallet to ensure that you can always restore access to your funds yourself. One of Argent's newest features is their ability to route trades through 10 decentralized exchanges, including Uniswap and Kyber, to make sure that you are always getting the best trade on your assets. Similarly, pushing the fold on what we can do in Ethereum and DeFi, Argent has replicated some of the legacy financial services that you would expect from your bank, but put it directly into the hands of the user, such as send limits and whitelisted accounts, ensuring that if anyone were to be able to access your funds in your Argent wallet, they could only send up to a certain amount and only be able to send them to approved addresses, which is creating one of the most safe environments to hold your assets in, which is why people have put millions and millions of dollars into the Argent wallet that they use on their device. In order to see the Argent wallet in action, go to argent.link/bankless and download the Argent wallet on iOS or Android today. We're also brought to you by Monolith. Monolith is your cool new DeFi account, your DeFi savings account, your DeFi checking account. Except the cool thing about the Monolith DeFi account is that it gets software updates, right? You actually get to increase the usefulness of this over time. So here are some of the features. Monolith is a smart contract wallet with a lot of the features that you would expect if you've come to know DeFi and what it is. You can add money to it. You can put that money to work in Compound and accessing yield. But you can also swap through Uniswap. What was cool with Monolith is that they will send you a very sexy Monolith Visa card that connects to your Monolith smart contract wallet on Ethereum. So it's a really awesome tool to live a bankless life with a savings account that gets software updates. So this is something that you're never going to find out in the real world, but you can still do real world things with real money, like buy your groceries. So that's just fantastic. Coming soon to Monolith, actually already here to Monolith, is now you can buy DAI and get it sent to your wallet directly, right? So it's also being an on-ramp. So you don't have to go through your centralized exchange like Coinbase or Gemini or wherever. You can just go straight from your bank account right into your Monolith checking account smart contract wallet. So check them out at monolith.xyz.
Bankless Nation, we are pleased to bring you Vitalik Buterin again in front of the nation. We are talking about a few things that are top of mind. Vitalik, great to have you. How are you doing?
Thank you very much, David and Ryan. It's great. It's great to be on Bankless again.
It is fun, and I feel like this is a really good moment to be on Bankless. The first thing we want to talk about with you actually is this pretty momentous, maybe monumental in the history of Ethereum achievement, which is we hit the number 524,288 ETH now deposited in the staking contract. How does that feel?
It definitely feels great. And I think for a long time, the first few weeks, and we were definitely a bit worried because I know the deposits were coming in slowly at the beginning, and it seemed like with only 4 days left, we only had 20%, and what the heck is going on here? And I mean, we even saw, right, that there were a lot of people who were starting to get worried, like on our GitHub thread, and I saw Eric opened up that GitHub issue, basically suggesting, hey, just in case there's never enough deposits, let's set a maximum date, and there was a bunch of arguments around that. But no, the Ethereum community came in and the Ethereum community delivered. And just like within the last 24 hours, we ended up having more deposits than we had in the entire period before that. It definitely feels a little bit surprising, though in retrospect, it should not be too surprising. I guess The one kind of event that happened in the past that this reminds me of is if you were here during the original Ether sale back in 2014. If you remember that whole event, it was this kind of 6 week long sale, but then the first 2 weeks were this most important period because that was the period during which you could get the most favorable price for your ETH. And there was like some amount of deposits on the first day, less on the second day, and then it seemed like it was going really slowly and kind of almost petering out at a couple of $1 million. And then just suddenly in the last couple of days, everyone just like whooshed in and pushed the whole thing up to close to $18 million. And like the curve feels kind of very similar to that. And I guess to some extent you should expect that because, well, why would someone participate earlier if they can just wait until the end? But you know, just seeing that kind of spike you just come first slowly and then all at once is definitely amazing, and it's definitely a great testament to the Ethereum community's level of confidence. And that first time in Ethereum itself, and then this second time in the proof of stake and sharding stuff that we've spent so many years working on.
So Vitalik, what does this tell you about the Ethereum community? Like as a result of this, and because we hit the 524,000 ETH, but then we just blew past it by 200,000 more ETH. Like, what does this? If this is a litmus test for the community, what is it telling you? What are your big takeaways about the Ethereum community as a result of this event?
I think like first of all, there's definitely wide community buy-in and confidence in ETH2 in general. And that's something that I think I definitely believed the whole time, but it's definitely good to have just such a clear sign of it. You know, $300 million worth of people just locking up their ETH, potentially never to see it again unless the thing, you know, either delivers or we find some kind of further thing to do to make those coins in the deposits actually valuable again. So you know, in some sense, it's the ultimate bet on progress, and I think like a bet on progress is to some extent what Ethereum is about.
I feel like it happened in the perfect way, like in a very like climactic way, and really like fired the Ethereum community up when it actually happened in the way that it did. Like it's almost fitting, I would say, that we weren't sure we were going to cross the threshold until the last 48 to 24 hours. But I'm curious about this number itself. Why was the number selected? What kind of drove that number to begin with? Was it fairly arbitrary that we have to have some amount of stake, and so why not this particular number, or was there some sort of rhyme or reason behind it?
I guess like 524,000 was the kind of the power of two that seemed like a relatively minimum acceptable threshold for an amount of deposits that we could have to ensure that the chain would actually be safe with that amount. So like to give one example, it's the smallest power of two that the Ethereum Foundation could not individually 51% attack. So that was... or no, the Ethereum Foundation has like slightly above that, but no, it would have to put everything in, and even then, it would only be around 50%. So if we had less, then just the number of actors that would have enough money to be able to take over the thing individually would just kind of get higher and higher, and so it actually would be like the chain would just not be that secure with a lower amount. But on the other hand, like at this level, it's getting to the point where like there's really very few individual actors that actually have the ability to kind of put in the funds to take over the chain. And aside from the foundation, there's also like obviously the major exchanges and maybe like Consensus and a couple, and I don't know how much they have, and a couple of whales. And then if you go kind of higher, and we hope to go higher, then it is going to get kind of out of reach of even those kind of largest holders. But like realistically, I mean, we don't have to kind of get up to those much higher levels immediately. Like this is still just the phase 0 beacon chain. There's nothing kind of completely relying on it, and so we start at a kind of medium level of safety, and then kind of go up to the higher level over time as people naturally become more confident in the system.
So this process, this getting to that number and exceeding the threshold of ETH, that sort of initiates the rocket launch sequence, right? But
Yes.
the chain is not yet launched. That will happen December 1st,
Correct.
12 o'clock UTC time. So what kind of happens next? What's the next milestone in the Beacon chain launch and in staking now that we've filled up the deposit contract to its minimum threshold?
So the next milestone is obviously the thing that's happening in 5.5 days after I'm saying this. So December 1st, the launch itself. Just it's, we've done lots of test nets, but this is still larger than any test net. It's a different set of stakeholders than any test net. So just making sure that all goes smoothly. Then after that, we would hope the proof of stake chain just runs smoothly for some amount of time. And at some point, we want to just start getting onto the task of kind of upgrading it and bringing on all of the full functionality that we want ETH2 to have. So the big ticket items are, one is sharding, the second is kind of the merge, so bringing ETH1 into the ETH2 system, removing the proof of work chain and kind of properly folding the system back together. And then there's also some smaller things that we want to do. So like, for example, we want to add light client support fairly quickly. So if you go into the ETH2 specs GitHub, there's already a PR that's we've been working on for about a couple of weeks to add light client support. And then there's some just efficiency improvements and some possible kind of economic tweaks. Like one example of like a type of economic tweak we might want to make is just making the chain more friendly to people validators who stay online during an activity leak, but don't stay online perfectly. So like basically, if you have 90% of performance during an activity leak where the people who are completely online lose 40%, like you should not lose 4%, right? Really, you should lose much less than 4%. You really were doing the best that you can. So I have a proposal around fixing that, just general efficiency improvements. So basically, the ETH2 chain is just going to kind of get into this progressing and upgrading mode, and it's basically preparing for the moment when the existing Ethereum ecosystem can kind of properly and fully fold into it.
Are you feeling a little bit, Vitalik? Because so this is like the launch sequence initiated, right? But at some level, we're all kind of standing close to the launch pad, watching the SpaceX rocket, and it hasn't quite launched yet. And that, of course, is maybe the most nerve-wracking part, right? So, is there any element of like you being nervous about December 1st, or I mean, what could happen December 1st? Could we have a failed launch? Could there be some issue?
I mean, issues are always possible, right? So this is, I think, why we should hold off the full celebration until
Yes.
after the thing really gets off the ground. But like we've seen what we've had with different test nets. Some of them launched perfectly. Some of them had issues. Even the ones that had issues, they definitely all kind of managed to fix themselves within either a couple of hours or a day or so. I expect that in this time, there's definitely more participants and potentially less experienced participants, though also maybe more experienced participants, because like the people who participated in the test nets are also going to be in the main net, and it's not going to be a first time for them anymore. I don't think we're going to see the thing that we saw in some of the test nets where 40% of people just never showed up, because this time we actually have a profit motive. There's just always the possibility of random technical risk, I suppose. But we've done lots of testing at this point, and like the quality of the test nets has definitely just gone up and up over time. But fingers crossed, and it hasn't happened until it's happened. So we're definitely hoping and eagerly awaiting everything going well.
So Vitalik, the ETH2 research team recently did a Reddit AMA that I thought was really fantastic. And there's one question I recall in there. I think somebody asked you the question about maybe, you know, ETH issuance or something. I forget the context for the question. You had this really, I thought, reflective reply where you talked about Ethereum being, while ETH2 is launching, it's also a technology and a network that is somewhat in motion, right? There are going to be a large set of improvements over the next 2 years, right? It's not necessarily going to be like instant scalability is here and both chains merge. It's going to still be a process. But at the end of that time, like the ETH2 chain will be in a much better place. I was wondering if you could, I'm not presenting it the way you did, the way you answered that question, but I'm wondering if that jogs your memory and you could talk about maybe that answer to the question, like, what's the future for issuance? What's the future for stability of ETH2? Where are we going to be on the other side when all of this stuff is done? And why should we hang with Ethereum?
Yeah, no, and I definitely think like I made that comment for a reason, and I think there's an important kind of insight to keep in mind there. So, like, there's a lot of people who have been recently commenting about how like this ETH doesn't have a finalized issuance schedule, or you can't calculate what the current total supply is, or what is the max supply, and or you're changing things, and there's definitely some extent to which like those queries are coming more from the Bitcoin community than the Ethereum community itself, and so we should definitely kind of not I guess overrate the extent to which we care, like really feel the need to kind of respond and satisfy all of those requests, but like the thing that I think we need to just keep in mind is that just kind of being intellectually honest about the state of Ethereum, like if you need a system which satisfies the property that it will stay the same as it is today, and it has existing properties that it's going to preserve, then Ethereum as it exists in 2020 is just, as a matter of fact, not the system for you for at least the next 1 to 1.5 years, right? There's just a reality that there has been this big, massive ETH 2.0 transition that's been planned pretty much almost since the project's launch, and now it's finally happening. And then at the same time, there are these massive transitions in economics. So EIP 1559 is a big one, and also just activity moving from layer 1 to the layer 2s is another big one. And these things are going to fundamentally change how a lot of economic and technical properties of Ethereum work. And so, like, any property of the Ethereum blockchain today may well change in those 1 to 1.5 years. And so if you're interested in long-term economic properties of the Ethereum ecosystem, like, it matters less what are the properties of the system today, and it matters more, what are the properties of the thing that's kind of slowly being built up over the next 1.5 years, right? Like what even is the point of being able to verify the current proof of work issuance schedule like perfectly if the thing that we really should be verifying is the economic properties of the proof of stake schedule that are going to be guiding Ethereum's economics for the 20 years after 2022 or whenever the merge ends up happening. So I think like just explicitly understanding that yes, Ethereum at the moment is a system in flux, and yes, if you want something that's not a system in flux, then Bitcoin may be the thing for you. Ethereum Classic may be the thing for you, though. And Ethereum Classic itself is kind of, I think, in flux as a matter of necessity because its immutability is being threatened by all these 51% attacks. But so that's one example where, in order to protect people's kind of property rights, you actually have to do something other than standing still.
So Vitalik, if this is successful, if we cross the bridge, if we make it for the other side, to the other side. For those that kind of stick with the project, stick like the builders who kind of stick with it, the community that sticks with it, what's left for us on the other side? What do we get in terms of issuance, in terms of improvements, in terms of security enhancements? What's the reward there?
I think great things are on the other side. So number one is obviously proof of stake. So much more efficient, much more secure, much less tree killing form of like much less issuance demanding form of consensus. So issuance is going to potentially go down by a significant amount. The efficiency of the network will go up by a lot, and Ethereum is basically going to become what I think the 2020s will expect a modern blockchain to be. So that's number one. Number two is sharding. And at the same time, the layer 2 ecosystem. So those things together are going to give us scalability in the tens of thousands of transactions per second, which is hugely important because ultimately, we're looking to create a platform that can achieve mainstream adoption, create a platform that actually can provide enough security and trust guarantees to its users, and actually scale that up to millions and potentially tens or 100 millions of users, and not just like a very small number, like a couple 100,000 per day. And just proof of stake and sharding are the things that needs to be done to make that happen. So that's number two. Number three is that just better protocol economics. So EIP 1559 is the really big thing. I think the more you use Ethereum, the more you realize that like just gas estimation is such a stupid and archaic concept. I really think that if all goes well, in 5 years' time, like blockchains that rely on this first price auction model is just going to be looked at like caveman economics. I'm really looking forward to it, and it seems like the model is already working well and increasingly being validated in Filecoin. It's increasingly working well on the testnet, so really looking forward to that hitting the mainnet. I think that could be one of the big stories of 2021. Also, just general efficiencies within the Ethereum system. So replacing the hex tree with binary trees, allowing stateless clients, which would make it much more efficient to process and to sync the chain. Much more some of virtual machine improvements that would allow us to just not need any more precompiles and to be able to have all the advanced cryptography that we want inside of Ethereum. So basically just everything that you could want if you're building some like privacy preserving application, or some kind of more complicated smart contract system, or some roll up for scalability. The tools actually are going to be there, and you're not going to have to use kind of clever tricks to anywhere close to the same extent as you do now. Also, light client support. So ETH2, we're taking a go at making it explicitly much more light client friendly, and so hopefully break the dependence on Infura and kind of actually have make it so that people's wallets actually can be light clients.
And Vitalik, do we get to that place, not fixed issuance, obviously like the Bitcoin model, but did we ever get to a place where we have more predictable issuance on the other side? What does that look like?
Yeah, so I think realistically we'll want to wait around 1 or 2 years after. It probably even like the clock starts ticking next week, so just after phase 0, and just verifying that the current economic structure of proof of stake is sustainable, verifying that economic structure can survive the addition of sharding, the addition of the ETH1 chain, verifying that EIP 1559 is working as expected. And then once all of those pieces are in place, then I think people are going to just have a much more clear and visceral understanding of, this is how high proof of stake issuance is, this is how high the AP 59 burn is, this is the kind of historical variance of those two parameters. And so like the issuance and general kind of change of the total supply level is going to look, I think, much more predictable a couple of years from now. And I think people are going to be very happy with the results.
If you want to live a bankless life, you need to get a hardware wallet. There is no alternative for storing your crypto in a self-sovereign fashion. That's why I have 4 ledgers that I use to manage my different crypto assets using the Ledger Live account as well. Ledger Live is like your home base for managing your Ethereum, DeFi, and crypto accounts. It does a really good job of aggregating all of your different Ethereum wallets if you are the type of person that uses more than one. But you can also add other cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin or Cosmos or whatever your preferred blockchain is. And then it will display an aggregate portfolio of all your accounts at the main page. One thing that Ledger is doing a really good job of is enabling all the money verbs that me and Ryan talk about with the Bankless Skill Cube enabled in the Ledger Live app. So right now in the Ledger Live app, you can buy, sell, lend, swap, and stake your crypto assets, which is doing a really good job of fulfilling all of the money verbs in the Bankless Skill Cube. Something that's new to Ledger Live is Ledger Swap, where you can swap assets one for another directly inside the Ledger Live application, ensuring trustlessness in your financial activity on Ethereum and on Bitcoin. If you want to learn more about what you can do with a ledger, go to the blog post, The Power of Ledger Live on the Ledger website, where they share some of the more advanced things that you can do with your ledger that you might not have known about. There's a link in the show notes that will take you to the Ledger shop where you can get your preferred Ledger hardware wallets. I personally like the Ledger Nano X, but I also have both. They're both great options. When you own a ledger, you own your own assets in the way that they have been designed to be held by the user and the user alone. So go get your ledger today to make sure that you are as self-sovereign as possible. The Bankless State of the Nations are brought to you by Yearn. Yearn is DeFi's first self-building community-run project, which I just get really, really excited about. Yearn is a system that seeks out yield in DeFi, and it does that in a number of different ways. A very aggressive way is with the vaults, where you can deposit your preferred asset of choice, and different DeFi experts will come in and generate a strategy for what to do with your deposited token, right? And so it'll go find ways to get yield in that deposited token in DeFi. For those who want to just earn yield on their stablecoins, the Yearn system is for you, where you can deposit your preferred stablecoin and Yearn will go and figure out which money market on DeFi in DeFi is producing the best interest rate, whether it's DYDX, it's Compound, or Aave. It looks around DeFi to see where the yield is coming from, and it directs stablecoins automatically so you don't have to. Check them out at yearn.finance to get started, and also check out the stats page to see what other people are doing as well.
Last thing for you on this, Vitalik, then we'll move on to something that is equally exciting in a way. If somebody is just built on the ETH1 chain right now, has all of their Ether on the ETH1 chain, do they have to worry about any of the stuff that like we were just talking about, or does this merge somehow in the future?
Good question. The answer is they absolutely do not. So one of the big compromises that we made for kind of practicality is that while Ethereum's consensus layer and scalability and all of these things are getting massive kind of revamps from the ground up, Ethereum's execution layer is actually remaining remarkably constant throughout the transition. So transactions that were valid before will be valid after. Smart contracts that executed in one way before will execute the same way after. Basically, all applications, contracts, ETH, everything will just be kind of migrated from the ETH1 side to the ETH2 side automatically, right? And so you as a user or as an application developer basically do not need to worry. I mean, there are a couple of corner cases, like for example, if you relied on block hashes for randomness before, then in proof of stake, block hashes stop being secure randomness. And so instead you would have to use like the RANDAO output as randomness. But you know, like these are block times are going to work slightly differently, but you know, these are generally like issues that only affect a very tiny portion of users. So for basically like the vast majority of the user base, I think they'll experience kind of close to no change from an application perspective.
Very
So
good.
Vitalik, the conversation about proof of work versus proof of stake was really, really big from what I can remember in 2017 and in 2018, or it was probably even bigger before that, but I came into the world of crypto in 2017. And I actually think it's really valuable that people understand this debate and why, and understand the merits of proof of work and also understand the merits of proof of stake in order to understand, like, why is Ethereum so committed to proof of stake? Like, why do we want this? And so you wrote this article on your blog, vitalik.ca, everyone should check it out, called Why Proof of Stake. And we kind of want to go through some of these points so we can help help the Bankless Nation like kind of come to understand the terms that you use here and the arguments of why proof of stake is inherently the right consensus mechanism for Ethereum. Guys, there's so much more left in this conversation. We're releasing the proof of stake part of this conversation next week. We wanted to focus on the ETH2 launch part of this conversation just for this week. So subscribe to the Bankless YouTube to stay tuned for the rest of the conversation. And then after the proof of stake component, we talk about concavity and convexity, which is a blog post that Vitalik recently put on his blog. And so that conversation is coming after the proof of stake conversation. And once all three of these things are released, the full video will be put out on the YouTube and on the Bankless podcast as well. So subscribe so you can make sure to not miss any of those conversations.